time is your friend with Paddy Pimblett, because if Bilal Muhammad does not get the job done, Islam says he's going up, right? The moment Islam's gone, put him in a title fight. Whoever he's fighting, put him in a title fight.
What's happening, guys? I'm Chael, he's Daniel, and you're all in luck because we're about to kick off another excellent episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. Daniel, we just got back from Miami. Dare I say, one of the best fight cards of recent memory. What's right on the top of your head?
Dude, first off, Miami, as I said, is my city. You saw the video I put the other day. I went to the beach, Chael. Man, they were swarming me, Chael.
They were happy to see you down there.
Every now and again, you got to feel that pat on the back. You start feeling a little self-conscious, like, am I who I am? Oh, yeah, I go to Miami Beach. They recognize the big chocolate teddy bear, and they go, hey, man, that's DC right there. Let me run up to this dude and get a picture. They have me feeling good out in Miami. But listen.
That's beautiful.
Dude, Miami was fantastic. It always has been, not only just as a city, but the fight cards. And it really does feel like that South Florida energy gets the fighters to fight even better. And so, happy for Volk, happy for Diego Lopes for the fight that he put out. But, dude, at the end of the day, just another April where you leave South Florida going, man, this place just absolutely delivers. And honestly, that was kind of both of our Monday headline when we talked about this on Friday or Thursday, sorry. I said, Miami just delivers. It absolutely did again, Chael. And how are you feeling after you get out of South Beach?
I loved it. I got a stat from Sean O'Malley. He sent it to me. He sent me a text, and it was of the 3 live gates they've ever done there. His is number 1, and it's by about 30%. I think that Sean O'Malley does have the right to be very proud about that. He flew out to Miami. He was part of the festivities, came face-to-face with Marab. Just to remind you, before they fought the first time at Sphere, Miami is the first time those two came to face-to-face. It was right after Sean got done with Chito Vera, so there was something that was very appropriate about bringing the rematch kickoff press tour to Miami. Look, Daniel, if I could try to stay on topic, though, of all the great fights and performances of the night, I'm not sold that Paddy the Baddy wasn't the single best, regardless of world championships. I mean, Michael Chandler is such a handful. Michael Chandler comes out there with such an incredible skill set, and there historically is a way to beat him. There's a blueprint. Not very many are good enough to do it, but part of that blueprint doesn't kick in until about 15, 18, 20 minutes. For Paddy the Baddy to be able to change the tide about 5 minutes and 20 seconds in, that really left an impression on me, not to mention how he did it. Paddy the Baddy ground and pounding Michael Chandler. This was not part of the script, partner.
Chael, he's a handful, but then he wasn't last weekend. That's what's surprising. He wasn't. Now, Chael, we come on this show every week, and it was supposed to be a show where you and I, we speak topics, and at times we would disagree, and we haven't as much as we probably were intended to do, because in a lot of instances, we think the same. You said Thursday, and your Monday headline would be, what's next for Paddy? I thought you were just doing the Paddy spin, right? You've been kind of, the moment you shifted on him, you went all in on Paddy Pimblett. And I was like, okay, let's see. Then he does what he does on Saturday. So I don't know that you've ever been more right in terms of a Monday headline, because he goes, my Monday headline will be, we will be arguing about who's next for Paddy Pimblett. Chael, we are here now. This dude pitched an absolute shutout the other day. He looked like Randy Johnson in the 90s, throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs and dudes just whiffing. He did everything he said he was going to do to Michael Chandler. He goes, I think people give him too much credit for his wrestling. I'm going to take him down. I go, you think you're going to take Michael Chandler down with a double leg? He goes, absolutely. He took him down, Chael, and he pounded him out. He fought as well as, I don't think I've seen a young guy in that spot fight better since Conor McGregor fought against Chad Mendes.
Glenn Jacobs tasted me with a hard thing today, and he said, tell the fans specifically, you and Daniel as experts, tell them specifically what Paddy's doing. Daniel, I went back and watched that. It's tough to do, and you want to know why? Every now and then you'll have a guy that's good at what we call the intangibles. Khabib comes to mind. George St. Pierre comes to mind. And what I'm talking about is something that isn't overly dynamic. Like, he's not running up a fence and jumping off and kicking a guy like a Showtime kick. He's not a video game character like Yair. He's very by the book. However, there's something happening that we can't quite witness. There's a grit, perhaps. There's a strength, perhaps. There's a conditioning and a pace. Perhaps we can't see it from the audience. I mean, when I watch Paddy, he is not dynamic. He stays calm. He fights like a young guy. He fights like a young guy that believes in himself, and the lights never get too bright, and he kind of even enjoys his work out there. And as simple as that might sound, that's a rarity, and it'll take you a long way. But to be able to deal with the adversity of being swarmed in the first round, he's losing the fight. That's very relevant for people to understand. I don't know if I'm as high and proud of Paddy as I am right now. Had he won the first round, it's the fact that he was losing the fight. Things were not going his way, but he didn't change. He believed in his arsenal. He went back to the exact same game plan. Chandler got him back to the exact same position, was down on his knees in a turtle. Yeah, and he got up. He got up and he got away, and that's where he started using that pace. That's where he started using some of these intangibles. I would love to start hearing from former opponents of Paddy, because those guys know, just like the guys that get swarmed by Khabib or George St. Pierre, they can tell us a little better. Hey, here's what you're not seeing. Here's what I'm feeling. But there's something about that feel of Paddy that is overwhelming even the best of our veterans.
That is the most interesting thing. When those guys that fought, those guys start to come on talk. When they're like, well, it's just a strength I've never really felt. Like when they would talk about Islam or Habib. It was Drew Dober, I think, that was speaking about Islam once going, it's just, I felt stuck. There's something about Paddy Pimblett. Because you know what the problem is, Chael? You know why we all keep doubting him? Because our prospects. So Conor McGregor comes to mind. He looked like a complete project, right? You know when you can watch a project and the project looks like it's on the way to being finished, but it's not finished. It looks odd until it gets to that point where you're like, okay, this guy's done. Israel Adesanya. While we didn't see him look great defending wrestling, it still looked pretty familiar. Paddy Pimblett doesn't look like that because there are times he goes backwards and punches. His chin still comes up a little bit. He seems a bit clunky at times in his striking because he's not a striker. So when he throws the jab or he throws the right hand, he gets it to the target, but it doesn't look as straight. It doesn't look like he's turning it over like some of these guys do. And he's not a wrestler, so he doesn't loop it. So it just looks different. It looks like he's supposed to still be a process in work, when in reality, what he has today, even if it's still in work, is about as good as anything in the division. He must be extremely strong, and he's big. He's so big. I cannot believe how big he looked out there with Michael Chandler, because we know Michael Chandler is a big guy at 155 pounds. He's good, man. He's good. He's much better than we want to give him credit for. And I think for Paddy Pimblett, people now are starting to come around because we have to. And I feel like you're going to see more and more of guys like myself, like Adesanya on Saturdays that eat crow and go, sorry, man. I'm done. Hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm done. Izzy walked up to me and goes, I'm gonna stop doubting you. It was that same thing that happened with Dricus du Plessis, where it might not look like it's supposed to look, but then every fight you're apologizing to the dude for doubting him because he just keeps looking better. So it sounds like a lot of people got to give Paddy some apologies.
And Daniel, when we came out of the backside, there's always a question of what's next. Now, Paddy had some suggestions. He talked about Charles. He talked about Artem, who he called a helmet, which is an insult I had never heard before. I actually went and looked that up. It's quite a funny little chirp at a guy. So he went to Charles, he went to Artem, he went to Dustin, and he went to Justin. And basically his point is, I'm top 5 now. Give me somebody elite. Any one of those guys, or whoever the first of those guys that goes on social media and accepts that fight will have that fight. But I'm going to predict for you, none of them do that. I think that Paddy is still the one that they're a little bit nervous about. I think there's still a little stigma about, hey, this guy's a bit of a showman, but secretly might be a little bit better talent.
Yeah, chill. At what point does he cross into that, I have to fight him because I want his hype? Has he gotten there yet? Because you remember there was a time with Conor where nobody was like, this little Irish guy's not very good. Then all of a sudden, it's like, I need to get to him because I know more eyes equals more money. How close is Paddy to being there? Like,
Yeah,
what
well,
you have to fight.
and I love that you bring that up because what a tipping point, right? He's not there. Those four guys that he called out, Artem, Charles, Dustin, Justin, they're not going to answer that response, but there will be a time. There will be a time when people are going to beg to be associated with Paddy because it's going to mean main events. It's going to be a bunch of money. And I only share with you, while we can't quite agree on who's next, we can consensusly agree that there's only one more. Paddy's going to fight one more time, and we are going to come out with the right performance, and we are going to demand a world title fight, and they're going to give it to him. He is one fight away from showing the world is he really as good as he says he is. And Daniel, he might be.
I mean, Jeff, bam, 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 and he's like,
grown men. He's got grown men.
Everybody's like, I'm like, what the hell is this? Paddy the Baddy. Oh, Paddy the Baddy. I can hear it through my my headsets there. Here's the thing about the what's next for Paddy Pimblett.
I liked watching you do that. By the way, you got a certain groove about it. There's like kind of a bushwhacker feel when you're doing it, but I kind of enjoy seeing you move so like bad.
that. Here's the thing about Paddy Pimblett now. Now, this is my thought, and I'm thinking more, Chael, from a organizational type of thought. Now you're in a point where you have a guy that clearly has it, right? You clearly have a guy that has it. You clearly have a guy that could potentially bring in money. Sean O'Malley, everybody talking about, you had hard, easy fights. Sometimes you got to kind of maneuver the athlete to the peak. I don't know that Paddy needs that, but I'm being smart here as an organization. I do get him one of the big names. I get him Dustin. I don't think Dustin will be around. I think Dustin was kind of trying to tell us it's almost done. He won't be around past July or whenever he's going to fight. But Justin Gaethje would be great. Arman Tsarukyan's not going to fight him. I would try to find him in there with Charles Oliveira. Let me tell you why. Because matchup-wise, I think it's a decent matchup for Paddy. I think it's a good matchup in terms of if he can win, what it would do for him. But more than anything, Charles Oliveira, sure. But for me, it's about buying time for Paddy Pimblett. Hear me out, Joe. Islam Makhachev would be a nightmare of a matchup for just about anyone. Time is your friend with Paddy Pimblett because if Bilal Muhammad does not get the job done, Islam says he's going up, right? The moment Islam's gone, put him in a title fight. Whoever he's fighting, put him in a title fight. I'm not saying Paddy Pimblett cannot fight and beat Islam. I'm saying if there's anyone in that weight class that's a real-life problem, it's the champion. So if it's Ilya, if it's Charles, whoever it is, if Islam goes up, that's who fights against Paddy Pimblett. But Charles Oliveira for me.
I like that idea. I like that idea. We're forgetting about Mr. Hand Sanitizer and their background. 155 is very confusing right now. We've got the immersion of the 45-pound champion. Our own champion in Islam is taking a look at the welterweight division. Like it's a real time where everybody's oars are out of the water, but there's going to be a day when all those dominoes are going to fall into place and we're going to have some real resolution. Daniel, can I move on? Because I have some different thoughts.
One question. You start a reaction, right? We all rush to can he be like Conor? Does he have that much chill? Does he have that much that he could get to that level? Because at this point, Conor already was there, right? Like Conor was already there by 6 or 7 fights in. Paddy went through the roller coaster, right? Remember, he was really hot. And then he had the Jared Gordon fight where he kind of turned everybody off and hated him. Then he got emotional in the octagon where he spoke about his friend's mental health and he kind of brought him back. He really has, he's taken people on a journey, right? Does he have that? Does he have that thing that McGregor possessed? Can he get there?
It's such a rare bar. I mean, it's just such a rare bar where Conor McGregor and Kimbo Slice were kind of able to transcend cultures, and they're the only two in the history of MMA. Paddy already brings a nation with him. Paddy's already lining up jumbo jets, and they're filling up arenas for him. Paddy got the loudest pop of the night in Miami. Like, he is over as a monetizable box office draw, and they haven't even main evented him yet. They haven't even put him at the top of the marquee. McGregor's status, That's a tough one. I mean, in all fairness, that's a tough one. You got to transcend culture. You got all of a sudden you got to get into movies and television, and there's some other things. But can Paddy challenge O'Malley? Can he challenge Alex Pereira? Yes, right here in 2025, he can start to break into those categories if Dana chooses to elevate him all the way to the main event.
We love talking about it because you hope that somebody can get there, but it's impossible. Nobody has done it in history. We've had some great champions, right? Chuck Liddell. I watched Vernon Maxwell said he got tired of looking at Michael Jordan's shoe soles, right? It's like Jordan runs past him and go dunk. He's like, that's what Chuck Liddell does to Conor McGregor. Chuck's like looking up at Conor, like, man, that guy's a star. And Chuck's by far the second biggest star in the history of the UFC. There is no reaching Conor McGregor status. I know we would be hopeful that it happened, but if you go to Chuck Liddell or Izzy or Pereira status, you're a big star in the UFC. Isn't it crazy that we don't even talk about John Jones when we talk about the biggest stars of all time? He's like,
John kind of ran into the same problem that Roy Jones did, which was John just got so good. It was hard to imagine that this was going to be close. And that's something in sport. That's just something in sport. They say that there's only two fighters, Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya, that can draw on their own, regardless of who the opponent. Now, that list probably needs amended to include Floyd and Conor McGregor. It's a little bit of a dated list. But I only share that with you, Daniel. I got to move forward on something, but it's Volkanovski. But I got to pad this first. And you want to know why? I am so blown away by Volk. This man is so impressive. I believed it would be the greatest 45-pounder ever before this fight started. Now he has added gold. He has added to his legacy. Daniel, it's one of the worst I've seen him perform. And if you could just hear me out on this, there was a gap between Volk and the field. When Volk was going through Max the third time, there was such a meaningful gap that if Volk showed up sick or Volk showed up a little bit hurt, Volk was still going to win all 5 rounds. And I only suggest for you that this is a reduced Volk that had such a gap. He had such a separation between himself and everybody else, and it wasn't his fault. There was just certain things that he did where he looked like an older Volk. There were certain punches that he took and absorbed. Then I got to look at what he was facing. And that's where I want to be. I want to choose my words because I don't want to kick a man when he's down. But Diego Lopes was nothing more than a Western boxer. I can count how many kicks that he threw in that fight because there were only 3. I can count how many elbows he threw because there were none. I can count how many knees he threw because there were none. He didn't have the decency to try a takedown, to try a submission. He didn't grab the fence or even kick the guy in the nuts. There was nothing that he did aside from Western box. And since 1993, we never seen a Western boxer become champion of the world.
That's the truth. All right, Jill. So I love you. I love that you said that because on Volkanovski's walk, we spoke about the concern that a lot of people had for him going into this fight. When at that time that you were speaking, when he was the number 1 pound guy in the world and he challenged Islam, him and Diego Lopes, everybody would have been like, this would be a washout. This is not going to be a competition. Because you remember how bad he beat Yair Rodriguez? He just kind of made him quit. Yair was like, I can't do anything to him. He just killed Brian Ortega. Was in that triangle, got out of it somehow, and then just beat the crap out of him. Yes, he does look like the guys can compete with him now. But even in that, he's the best featherweight in the world because the featherweights that beat him or could compete with him are up at 155 now. He's beaten the rest of those guys. He beat Yair. He beat Ortega. He beat Diego Lopes. Evloev is going to have a tough time getting to him because of the way he fights. It's a little bit boring. But he's the best. And that featherweight GOAT, I thought he was the featherweight GOAT before the fight. This only furthers that thought. I think that a guy that can beat Aldo, beat Max Holloway, beat the rest of the guys that he's beaten, challenge Islam in the way that he did in fight number 1, hands down is one of the greatest fighters of all time. And Saturday was just a reminder that if he's not in there with all world killers, he's going to win That's all he's done. I don't know how many guys, Shale, between 145 and 155. Who would you choose? Who would you choose to fight Islam Taporia and not be through 0-3? I'll give you this, though. Give me someone that you would say would be 1-2 against Islam and Taporia in 3 fights.
Yeah, I hear your point on that, and I would really need a minute. And I also had the same thought as you did, which is watching Volk and watching the beauty of that performance, and I had to instantly go to just what are we saying about how good Ilia Topuria is? All of a sudden, watching Volk in there Saturday, all of a sudden doesn't make Ilia such an underdog against Islam. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. How do I keep saying that Volk is the best ever when Ilia existed? And the answer to that question is it was just too brief. Volk was just too long. If I could have one of their careers, regardless of the outcome, I'd rather have the longevity. So I had to throw my support of greatest featherweight ever behind Volk, but that doesn't mean there's not an argument. I mean, we got some boys out there that really know how to get down in these contests. And I do think that we got a very exciting 2025 in front of us. One thing about 45, I got to give that whole division a little bit of a bump. I mean, the only 45-pounder that tried to emerge was Pitbull. Things didn't quite go his way. I know Rodriguez took the microphone and ultimately called out the champion, but that would call for a rematch that was ultimately not very competitive. We're hearing that, Ivolev, he deserves for me to say his name correctly, but we're hearing that he was going to fight Pico, but coming out of that venue, and I don't know if you heard this broke about 3 a.m., that fight got broken up. That is no longer the fight they're doing, and we all have to assume that's to find somebody for Volkanovski, though we weren't quite given that clarity. I'm just saying we got a lot of moving parts now at 45, and we shouldn't. We should have a list of guys pining for a title shot.
Hey, could you imagine if Ilya stayed at 145 after knocking out Volkanovski and Holloway? Like, you're like, man, who's going to beat this dude? Like, when he shot that double leg on Max is hard to take down. He shoots a double leg. They fly through the air. He's so damn explosive. He's good, man, and he's going to be a problem for anyone. Chill. After Volkanovski won that belt, there are now 0 champions in the UFC that are under 30 years old. That, to me, is crazy because everybody speaks about how sports get younger, not in fighting. Everybody's 30. I won my first title at 36 years old, Jill. I won my last title at 39 years old. So I know through experience that you can fight longer as you get older. But people say that you're in your prime right at around 28, 30 years old. This proves it, right? We've got Volk, Pantoja, Merab, all of our champions are now over 30 years old. What does that say about the sport?
Then I had some enhancements to help me, but I felt my best around 38 and 39. It was a bit of a surprise. And I share the same sentiment as you. When I was growing up, the greatest athlete was named Dan Gable, but he retired from the sport by 23. A little more time, there was John Smith and the Brands brothers, but they were both out of the sport along with Cale Sanderson by 28. And Randy Couture got into fighting. They called him a natural because he would do it as an old man. His first fight was at 34. Chris Campbell carried the flag for the Olympics. They called him Grandpa in 92 because he was 36. And just to your point, yeah, the athlete is getting older. The world doesn't necessarily belong to 18 to 25-year-olds anymore. It is very exciting to see some of these guys that can really take care of their body, and recovery in our training has become such a important part and an important word. And that is one thing that wasn't there before. There was never an emphasis put on preparation and stopping things, healing your body. That just wasn't really talked about, recovery and such. And I see guys doing it, and I see them getting better, man. And I don't know that it's going to go back to the young guys. It does seem like it takes a little time to mature in this sport. And that 30 to 33 is a pretty good range.
That's it right there. That right there, Chill, was the point. The maturity you gain through your journey in the UFC. Most of these guys, even when you get there young, right? You're getting there around 24, 25 years old. 4 or 5 years, that's about 8 fights, get you into a championship opportunity, and they become champ. Because I know Islam is now 33 years old. Islam at 24, 25 wasn't ready for a championship fight. He wasn't who he is today. He got better and became the person that he is and became a world champion. So yes, I think it takes time to build your way into that. I mean, Drake Du Plessis, the youngest champion, 31 years old. I thought Drake Du Plessis was way older. Bro, John Jones and Shevchenko are 37, Chael. They still have so much time to fight if they want to fight. So,
and maybe, by the way, looking their best.
Yeah.
John Jones might have looked his best against Stipe. That one got dismissed because, like, Stipe was over 40. That might have been the meanest version of John Jones. Shevchenko went right through Grasso, who'd beat her before. Like, Shevchenko might be at her best. That's worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we got some champions that I don't even think 30s are old in terms of fighting. I think we have champions that are right in the middle of their prime. So 145 was on display last weekend. We had the fight between Bryce Mitchell and Jean Silva. We had the fight between Yair and Pitbull. We also had the fight between Volk and Diego Lopes. After the fight, Yair Rodriguez said, I want to fight Volk. You and I both agree. Not yet. Rematch, not that competitive a fight the first time. But what it does open the door for is him versus Diego Lopes. After that big argument on Thursday at the press conference, how in the world do these two not get matched up? After Yair had lost a few in a row, got a victory, but I think that him and Diego, you can match those guys. The UFC has been more willing now to match guys off a win and a loss together than they were in the past.
Daniel, that came out of nowhere. Now, you got to understand, there's some guys in real life, you're better off to just leave alone. And believe it or not, Yair Rodriguez runs with that type of a crowd. But he doesn't bring that. Yair is like the ultimate sportsman. He will leave all that stuff outside and he will address and he will adjudicate this by the unified rules, and he'll never speak of some of that guerrilla type stuff. And I'm only sharing with you that was the real Yair that came out. That guy usually stays behind. Oh, I'm from Chicago. I train in California. He's very polite. That's the real Yair Rodriguez. Something got to him, man, and they were doing this in a different language. And I asked a couple of interpreters, and I got a couple of different answers, so I'm really not confident to come and tell you what was said. That's the real Yair Rodriguez. He's very hard to upset. He is, but how do you see what we just saw and not get those two together? I mean, when two guys want to fight and we're in the fight business, let them fight. It's kind of a rule. It's very hard, and guys all bang their chest, but not very many of them actually want to. If these two guys want to fight, please, I don't want to be in your way. There's an octagon. Tell me when and we'll make the walk. So I just thought that was a real piece that was compelling. Can I tell you this on 145? I regret it if I didn't, which is just a shout out to Pitbull. Hey, listen, he did a good job, Daniel. There is nobody that's not named Justin Gaethje that could step in that octagon and perform on day one. And you know what? Pitbull did. He didn't look tired. He didn't look slow. He didn't look like the lights were too bright. The reality is Yair Rodriguez took all the media off of him. He completely deflects. He never goes to social media and builds himself up. And the reality is Yair Rodriguez is a top 3 fighter and has been for the better part of the last decade. He just doesn't demand attention. He didn't care that he was a co-main event. He didn't care that Pitbull was the one that was being looked at for a title shot. When Yair's coming in there with his own secret, which is he already talked to Dana and Hunter, and he already had a promise himself, but he didn't tell anybody. If he told the world before the fight, he would have put pressure on himself that this is a number 1 contenders match. He plays a different game. He plays a rope-a-dope. He plays a humble, nice guy. That guy is a stone-cold badass. And it wasn't a matter that Pitbull's not ready for the octagon. Yair Rodriguez is that darn good.
He's good. He's really, really good. And I thought Pitbull fought at the end of the fight because that's what he does, right? When Pitbull is actually fighting, when he's mean and he's throwing, is when he's the most dangerous. And I thought he did that down the stretch. John Silva fought Bryce Mitchell. Hey, bro, it was it was so crazy. I'm watching the fan reactions. You know, Bryce Mitchell is a little bit of a, so I see the guy from, what's the name of that big company? Dave Portnoy, he's from like the big
Barstool Sports.
Barstool Sports. So he's got on his like yarmulke.
Yep.
He's like booing at Bryce with his flag. Yep. And then I see some people cheering for Bryce. It was the craziest. The craziest introduction.
Portnoy's a legit fan. Like, he doesn't know how to come out and be El Presidente. He is a fan.
Bro, he's going crazy with a flag in his yarmulke. I'm like, this is the most insane situation I've ever been a part of. And Bryce is out of his mind. He goes out there and he's fighting Jean Silva, who's barking the whole time. I mean, it was theatrics at a level that you can only hope for when it comes to fighting. These guys, it had everything, Chill. And then the fight starts. And Bryce actually is fighting pretty good, but he can't take Jean Silva down. And then you see Jean Silva's confidence growing. And once he got his confidence, Chill, I thought Jean Silva looked like a guy that could potentially challenge for a UFC championship at some point. Did you feel the same way?
It was unbelievable. I mean, the charm and the charisma. I got to go all the way to their walkout stand. I mean, I got to walk this whole thing up. This is the ultimate elephant in the room that the media didn't even know how to discuss. Like, this thing got so sensitive. The adjudication for words spoken by Bryce, the punishment was supposed to be Jean Silva. That fight was a 550 against Bryce when it started. It went off as the 300. As that fight got closer, the audience, myself included,
I got to be honest,
to realize, hey, wait a minute. Bryce isn't an easy draw for anybody. If Bryce gets anybody to the ground, it's problematic. And there was almost a social built-in vindication to what Bryce said if he was able to win. Like this, when this match went down, was a massive deal. Ari Emanuel left his seat and congratulated Silva, which I have never seen Ari do. I have never seen Ari do anything to make himself part of the show. I'm sharing with you. That's how important this was. You brought up Portnoy, and I saw all of these things. I mean, it was on. And this guy, he comes out, Jean Silva, he comes out, and he's doing this dance, Daniel. I thought he had a better walkout than Paddy. I thought that whole thing where he's moving his hands, and then he's got, it's like Mike Perry-esque, where he's got his fiance is his corner man.
Oh,
There's
my God.
something about that. Then it turns out he's one of these fighting nerds, and these guys are like Midas. Everything these nerds touch turns to gold right now. That was the most fascinating match. And for Silva to beat Bryce at his own game, I mean, that was one of the high points of the evening. And nobody's talking about it, Parker, because they don't have the courage. They don't quite know how. But there was so much on the line in that fight. And thank the heavens above, the story ended the way the story was supposed to end, because we could be having a big problem right now trying to explain if it happened.
We would not be explaining it because we would have just skimmed right over it. But Bryce Mitchell won. That's a wrap. We're not talking about it. Chill. It was crazy. Yes. There goes the camera cover. Chill. Jean Silva looks like a guy that could potentially be a world title challenger, if not champion at some point. The only guy that I've seen beat on Bryce like that was Ilya Topuria. Ilya beat him up bad and submitted him. Jean Silva did the same thing. That submission was nasty. So I look forward to him getting a big fight next, because now it's time to start challenging him inside the top 10 and top 15. I know Bryce was one of those. But you spoke about the fighting nerds. This is a team that is on absolute fire right now. So you have Cabo Hayo, you have Jean Silva, you have Mauricio Rufi, you have Carlos Prates. I know that this is a bit messy by ranking these guys. They all seem so friendly. But if you had to rank them in terms of their star potential, their potential in Octagon, their chances to become a champion, how would you rank these four?
I am really giving a look at Caio right now. I don't know if he's the leader of that group. And if he's not, I don't want to on ESPN say that would be awkward for them. But everywhere they go, he's there. Yeah. I mean, that guy has not touched anything lately that hasn't turned in a championship performance. It's really a surprising thing. I got to meet Caio in Las Vegas when you and I were out there for a couple of months, Daniel. He's a big man. He's a very big man. I even turned to some people. I said, man, I thought that guy was an 85-pounder. Do I have that wrong? He looks like a small heavyweight. They said, no, he cuts all the way down to 85. There was a fellow 85-pounder, a guy in the top 10 last week who was doing an interview, and when asked who the biggest threat of all of them are, and what the reporter was really wanting to know is between Dricus Du Plessis and Chimaev, but it's not how he worded it. He said, who's the biggest threat at 85? The guy said, Kyle. That was his answer. And the reporter stood back and said, what? In front of these top, he said, yes. He said, Kyle would be world champion right now. So when you ask me to rank those guys, I'll let you do the other ones. I think that Jean Silva's on the list. I don't know that he's number 2. I think that Prattis is probably the number 2 guy. I think it's very interesting, but it's just everywhere I look, Kyle, and there's a certain energy that leaders bring. You used to do that at the American Top Team. Like I would see you in guys' corners, and there was a certain energy. There was a certain, hey, have fun. Your whole life isn't on the line. There's a certain thing about that. Put the glasses on. We'll deal with this when we got to deal with it. There's something about these nerds that can compartmentalize better or as well as any team I've witnessed in our sport.
Yeah, it's AKA Chill. I'm sorry, I just can't like call it American Top Team, but yes, it's all good, Chill. Chill. You know how those guys got it rolling? Michał Oleksiejczyk beats who did he beat last weekend?
What'd you call him?
Michał Oleksiejczyk. He beat
you do, and you're going to clean it up.
That's his name, right? Oh,
that sounds like a big mess.
He beats the Drinkless Dumas last weekend, and he's on the Fighting Nerds. Did you see him put his glasses on? Yeah. He got beat by Bohalio, went and trained with Bohalio now, and he got a victory. So Oleksiejczyk is now a Fighting Nerd. So if I'm listing him, all right, it's Oleksiejczyk, right, at 5, Jean Silva at 4. Because think about this, dude. When you get into Prates, Rufy, and Bohalio, those dudes are good.
Who you got to put in front of Rufy, man? He's nasty.
Dude, he's so good. But for him, he's 3rd. Because at number 2, it's Carlos Prates. Yep. And we'll learn a lot about him next week because he's fighting Ian Machado Garrett. He gets for Ian Machado Garrett, and he's already on the short list of guys that could potentially fight for the belt. And I believe that Bohalio, I know who he's fighting. I can't tell because he swore me to secrecy last week. It's a big fight. Chill, it's a big fight. And if he gets through that one, he's going to be fighting for the belt. Wow. It's a big fight. So, and he's the leader. He's the guy that came on the Contender Series, went through it, looked amazing, fought everybody. I think he beat Jared Cannonier already in his career. So this guy is he's the number 1 guy.
Well, think about doing that while forming a team, while coming up, while getting some nerdy thing sold at UFC.com. You know how hard that is to do while traveling around. I mean, he's having to do his training out of hotels and suitcases because he's the cornerman trying to get this thing off the ground. There's a lot on that, man. Those leaders, you're one of them. Khabib was one of them. It's a small list. And when I heard these 85-pounders speaking this highly of Kyle, and now I'm hearing from you that he might have just got himself a number 1 contenders match. There's a lot on that young man's plate, and he appears to really have a maturity to deal with it appropriately.
Yeah, if he can get through this, I imagine he'd be fighting for the belt. And part of the reason I put him number 1 is because he has the most potential to be champ, because I do believe that he matches up well with the champion in his weight class right now. All right, last one, Joe, before I let you go. What's the biggest story? Amanda Nunes going into the Hall of Fame, or what she said at the press conference that she's going to come back to fight?
Okay. Now, there's a lot on that. Brett Okamoto heard it the same way that you did. Brett Okamoto heard it as an announcement that Amanda is returning. That's not what my ears heard. And I know it's what she said, but then you kind of break down intent and you break down tone. And was she agreeing with a pretty led question? And I thought so. Look, I just heard Amanda say this so many other times. I don't believe she wants to fight Kayla. That isn't some kind of a knock against her, but the reality was she had a chance to fight Kayla. The reality is we as people don't get better at something by not doing it. Yeah. She not only stopped doing it, she left the gym purely because of Kayla, and not for nothing, she doesn't love to make 135 pounds. At the same time that we don't get better at something as humans by not doing it, we don't get smaller by not doing something. I just think that's a lot to chew up. Let's accept it. I'm only sharing for you. There is a number of fighters that say that they're coming back, but the sign universally where the rest of us accept that from fact versus fiction or an interview versus reality is the entering of what we call the pool. And Amanda has not entered the pool, and therefore she has not taken a step in that direction. She is not even in possession, to my knowledge, of the paperwork. Therefore, I think I did hear it right which is a girl that was trying to be polite in a moment in a language that was second to her. I did not hear an announcement of a return.
It's the bigger news to me is the Hall of Fame, because you can see how much it meant to her that she is respected and held in the regard that she is. I just find it hard to come back and fight at that level when you've been away from it for so long. Chael, it's one thing to have an idea, I'm going to do this again. But the moment you put those gloves on every single day for a month and you're tired and you're beat up and you're sore, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. That Dana said, oh, you retired too fast. I'm like, bro, I didn't want to feel sore like that anymore. I just didn't want to do it. And there are times where you just don't want to do it. Amanda seems like she doesn't want to do it. And the one thing she cannot do is fall victim to the pressure and the expectation of people wanting her to, especially if Kayla Harrison becomes the champion. Because Juliana Pena, the champ, now she beat up in the last time they fought. She won a very convincing fight over her. If Kayla beats her, then that's an even tougher opponent for a comeback fight under terrible circumstances. So I don't know that Amanda should fight. So for me, the bigger news is the UFC Hall of Fame.
All right.
HL, before we go, because it's over. No show on Thursday. You want to know why?
Why?
Because we're live at the main stage at WrestleMania on Friday. You guys, don't miss Chael and I. We have a special episode Friday from WrestleMania. And if you know the good guy and the bad guy, how much this excites both of us to be able to do that there. Chael, how pumped are you for WrestleMania this week?
I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up. My son's getting some street cred fight. Like his classmate thinks he's a cool guy. People are asking about it. It's a 2-day event now. John Cena's gone to the main event. Charlotte Flair's come down. I hope we have some time to cover Mania. But how excited am I? On a level of 1 to 10, I'm a 10.
I'm at a 10 too. Chael, another great episode, man. Get some rest. See you this week in Las Vegas. Guys, for Chael Stevens, I'm Daniel Cormier. Until next time, peace.
Get some rest. What do I look tired? What is that, an insult?
No, I'm just saying, man, you've been traveling.
You think I need rest?
You've been on the road, Chael.
My energy is down. Chael P does not need rest. I barely need food or oxygen. Goodbye, turkey. See you in Las Vegas.